Apologies for the sound of rain that you note out here in this video. It has been going on literally all day with no break and is really starting to bug me. That said, let's talk about Nevermore. One of my favorite episodes of Teen Titans, especially early Teen Titans, focusing on my hands-down favorite character in the series. This is the sort of get-to-know-you character introduction episode for Raven, played by the lovely and talented Tara Strong, who I've already pointed out in previous videos is my favorite voice actor of all time. And holy crap, does this excellent episode give her a chance to show off her talents. We even get to hear sort of a proto-Twilight Sparkle voice, which I will point out when we get to it. In this episode, the Titans, including Raven, because she is one of the Titans, are fighting against the villain Dr. Light. And all of them, even Raven, despite how powerful she is, are doing quite poorly against him. Dr. Light is a complicated character. He has various interpretations throughout the history of DC Comics, like any good character does. And at first, the writers on this show seem to be going with more of a campy version of his character, sort of a Silver Age version of his character, just with some serious tech, which makes him very powerful and very dangerous. We get to see the full array of his powers here, and he is quite impressive. However, when he goes after Raven, when he gets the best of Raven, we start to see a bit more of his more modern interpretations bleed into his characterization. And I'm not going to get into what his more modern interpretations entail, but let's just say that when Raven loses her temper, goes all glowy red eyes on him, and drags him into literal darkness, seemingly scarring him for life, I don't have much sympathy for the guy. Actually, I don't even know if that's entirely fair, because I don't even know if Identity Crisis had been published yet by the time this episode came out, but doesn't change the fact that I don't like Dr. Light. Anyone who's read the Identity Crisis miniseries will know why. So I actually kind of enjoy him getting traumatized here. So sue me. Still, either way, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing in the long run, it does show that something's up with Raven. And you can tell they're all worried about her, including Beast Boy, who, aside from maybe Starfire, is probably the one member of the team who is most different from Raven. And he tries to be nice to her, but she essentially snaps at him just in the way that a person with superpowers might. And the entire team agrees that he was being a little too pushy with her, and they kind of decide together that he should apologize. So Cyborg goes with him to do so, to make sure he does so, and they accidentally break down the door to Raven's room. They're not allowed in Raven's room, but because they're looking for her, they go in anyway, and her room is delightfully creepy. I honestly kind of wish we could have spent more time in the room itself, because it looks like she's got some really neat stuff in there. But instead, they find a mirror and accidentally get pulled into this mirror, into what appears to be another dimension. And while they think that maybe it's Raven's home dimension, it was always very obvious to me when I first watched this episode that this was supposed to be inside Raven's mind, and that's what it turns out to be. It is also delightfully creepy. You guys know at this point how much I love horror imagery, and this place definitely scratches that itch. But as interesting as the place itself is, with its floaty rocks and its creepy fauna, it's really the ravens that are the most interesting. And no, I don't mean the bird ravens, I mean the human Raven. Because this is inside Raven's mind, Beast Boy and Cyborg are able to encounter different aspects of Raven's personality. There is chronically depressed Raven, action hero Raven, and Raven Sparkles. I mean, seriously, listen to her voice.
Sure. I've always thought you were funny, BB.
And then listen to the voice of Twilight Sparkle.
She'll be able to find anything in 3 seconds flat. It was some of my best work.
And tell me that those aren't the same voices. This is the section that I talked about where Tara Strong is able to really show off her voice acting talents, as each of these characters, as each of these versions of Raven, has a distinct personality, and hence has some distinction to their voice, and yet they are all played by Tara Strong. They are all very obviously meant to be different versions of the same person, but you can still tell from listening to them that they are the same person, and that's talent. That shows real talent. These different versions of Raven kind of pass Cyborg and Beast Boy off to one another, relay style, trying to get them to an exit portal which will take them out of Raven's mind. But in the meantime, the real Raven, who is meditating in the real world, realizes that they're there and jumps into her own mind with them. And we get the reveal of the source of Raven's great power earlier in the episode, and also what it was that caused that outburst of power. A giant red-skinned man with 4 eyes who Raven calls her father. And the episode itself implies that this is just another aspect of Raven. That it's some aspect of her that she got from her father, anger issues maybe, that she sees as a negative aspect of herself and therefore tries to keep under wraps. But anyone who's read the comics or watched through the entire series knows that That's not entirely true. This is Raven's actual father, Trigon, who is basically a living god, and he can use Raven as a portal to enter the real world and then conquer it. And so it is extremely important that Raven keeps her anger under wraps so that that doesn't happen. That's the reason that Raven seems so distant from the others. That's the reason she seems to repress her emotions, and that's the real reason she uses the magic words. Dr. Light had pointed out earlier that she needs shorter magic words, because while having to say them, her reactions were just too slow to keep up with him. But we can infer that even the magic words are there to keep Trigon in check, that they help focus Raven while she's using her powers so that she doesn't accidentally tap into Trigon's power. And so we can also infer that that outburst against Dr. Light and again against Beast Boy the next day were her tapping into that power. She mentions that something has gotten loose and that that something is Trigon. Tapping into his power on those two occasions has brought him closer to the surface. And now that she is here in her mind, Raven sees no choice but to fight him head to head. She tries to send Beast Boy and Cyborg out of her mind to keep them safe. But of course, they're her friends. So they stay behind to help her fight, and even give her inspiration as to how to defeat him. We've seen the various aspects of Raven's personality, but they've been scattered throughout her mind, the implication being that she keeps them separate from one another. This is a very visual representation of the fact that she represses her emotion. Not to say that those emotions don't affect her. Raven Sparkles, for example, pointed out that she finds Beast Boy funny, that she's always found Beast Boy funny. And then depressed Raven later says that she's worried that Beast Boy doesn't like her. And we get confirmation later that these are true reflections of what Raven thinks, when real Raven also suggests that she didn't think that Beast Boy really liked her. So it's not as if these aspects of her are completely repressed. They still reflect who she is as a person day to day. But she doesn't seem to acknowledge them in the ways that she should, and that's just not healthy. And so between her friends staying behind to help her, proving that they are actually her friends, that they do actually like her, and them suggesting that she rely on those other aspects of herself to help her fight Trigon, she's inspired to combine with the other aspects of herself. We get to see even more aspects of her personality that we didn't get to know, which kind of bums me out. I kind of wish we had. But it's still a pretty cool scene with all of them merging together into a giant white raven who is able to fight off Trigon and reduce him down to an angry raven, which is likewise absorbed into the whole. I love this because it's apparently something that Raven never considered. Raven's anger is a method for Trigon to emerge into this world, and so she does have to keep it contained. She does have to keep it under control. And her answer to that has been to repress all of her emotions. The implication of all of this is that by accepting those parts of herself, she becomes a more complete, more healthy person, and so that anger doesn't have as much room to grow and fester and becomes just another part of her, just another part of the whole. It's super interesting and pseudo-psychological, but only barely. Obviously, you can't really go into someone's mind through a mirror as a meditation technique to help them through psychological issues. And obviously, I'm no psychologist, but I wouldn't be surprised to learn that this episode has real weight, psychologically speaking. That the messages that it imparts actually makes sense from a psychological standpoint. That her accepting those other parts of herself, including her anger, is actually a pretty accurate representation of someone working to improve their mental health. I mentioned that Beast Boy, aside from Starfire, is probably the most different member of the team to Raven. And that's why, even though I kind of wish the entire team had been there together in Raven's mind to all kind of learn all of this and grow together, I still like that the focus was on the relationship between Raven and Beast Boy. Raven always thought that Beast Boy was funny, but couldn't express that because she was repressing that part of herself. She's always been afraid that Beast Boy doesn't like her, so his attempts at kindness, from her perspective, come off as him picking on her. And she was never able to realize otherwise because she was repressing the part of herself that felt that way. But now she knows that Beast Boy actually cares about her and that she can rely on him, Beast Boy here being a surrogate for the entire team. And so from this point forward, she is more open and expressive with the team as a whole. I could probably sit here and dissect this episode for another half an hour, at the very least, and never run out of stuff to say about it. It really is one of the most complex and profound episodes of this show, and it's only, the 6th episode, I think? I mean, how fantastic is that? To see an episode this early on in a series which promises such great things from the series as a whole. After all, if this is the series before it's really found its stride, how great does this series have the potential to become? If there's anyone who's watching this who has any real knowledge of psychology, something beyond my passing interest in it, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this episode. So, as per usual, if you guys have seen this episode of Teen Titans, what do you think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.